Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. As part of a comprehensive news analysis, today we'll be discussing 5 important topics out of the Hindu Newspaper Delhi edition. But as always, we have a very important announcement for you. There's a very important workshop coming up on 11 January at 7 p.m. It is by Sarmat sir and it will be discussing preparation strategy for polity for UPSC Prelims and Mains both. And if you want to attend this session, you would have to register and it's totally free. And the link of that registration is in the description below. So you can easily go and register. So with this, let's start our analysis for today. So the first topic is an interesting one because municipal corporations have been in the news for quite a long time now because of Delhi and the MCD elections which happened and the ruckus which is still happening in Delhi as of right now with regards to the mayor. But this is a very interesting report given by the RBI, and the RBI report points out to the finances of the municipal corporations, and it's a very alarming picture which we see. As always, I will talk about the basics first. I'll give you the larger picture, then we'll go into the nitty-gritty via the PPT itself, and then we'll summarize everything in the end, and from time to time we'll revise in the same session itself. So what is the basic point of this article? What are they trying to point out? There are 4 very important charts or flow charts made within this article itself, and it talks about the financial health of municipal corporations and how are they getting their funds. So the first point is, what is a municipal corporation? Municipal corporation, a very important urban local body, comes out of the democratic decentralization which we see, and it is responsible for the development of the municipalities in cities, or very important urbanization tool. So if there's urbanization, there will be a municipal corporation and they decide how that urbanization will happen, planned, unplanned, and it's a very important body, be it Delhi or be it any metropolitan city in India as of right now. Now, though it is a very important body and it's an urban local body itself, very important part of democracy in India itself, the finances are a little bit shady. And the problem as of right now is, and I'll give you the basic gist first, is that if you add all the budgets of all municipal corporations in India, it is still very, very small as compared to the budget of any state government or center generally. And more than that, if we go into the breakup of how they're getting their money, it is an alarming picture. And the alarming picture here is that only 30 to 34% of their revenue, their funds, actually comes from tax revenue, which is the taxes collected by the municipal corporation themselves. They are more reliant on this part, which is the state and central transfers to the municipal corporation, and thereafter a very small minuscule aspect of non-tax and others. But what is even more alarming, and as I said, I will go into the details later, what is even more alarming is out of this 30 to 34%, 40%, close to 40% is actually property tax, which means that they are too reliant on property tax generally, and there's a graph for that also. And if you look at the tax revenue, direct tax collected by the corporation, if you compare it with this, which is the state GDP, the maximum they are going is 2% of state GDP, which is again very, very low as per international standards, and vis-a-vis the GDP of India itself, it is 0.6%, maximum 0.7%, which in Brazil or other countries is 6 to 7%. So if you add all these graphs together, the first aspect that the tax revenue of these municipal corporations is only 30 to 34%, and in India itself, when you put this tax revenue vis-a-vis the GDP of the state itself, you see that the maximum it goes is still 2.2%, and in some states, Sikkim, Assam, Goa, Karnataka, it is 0.1, 0.2% of the state GDP. And if you look at the breakup of this tax revenue itself, 40% is property tax itself. There is a steady increase in property tax, still undervalued in that regard. So overall, if you look at the receipt and the expenditure, receipt meaning what the money they get, and the expenditure itself, what you see is that they're actually spending more on revenue expenditure, which is recurring, does not create any assets, and they are spending less on capital expenditure. Therefore, the way they are getting the funds is also a problem. The way they are spending the funds is also a problem, and this has implications in the long run generally. So again, just to give you or contextualize it in better way, let's try to break up this data in an even more simpler way. If you look at the basic data, 30 to 34% is tax revenue. First point. Out of this tax revenue, 40% is property tax. And if you compare it to state GDP, it is 0.1% to maximum 2.2% of any given state. And over and above that, they are spending close to 70% of all this collected tax into revenue expenditure, which is recurring, pension, salaries, creates no asset, and only 30% is capital expenditure. Therefore, what you see here is that they are getting the source of the money itself is problematic, but their spending is also problematic. And this is why this article becomes extremely important when it comes to the mains examination or generally for urban local bodies and generally polity. Why? Because this is talking about a very important marker of change, a tool of development, of urbanization, but how it is totally skewed in itself. So this topic is very easy, but it's very alarming. This is why it becomes relevant for the UPSC aspirant, and these graphs become very, very important because they can ask you a trend-based question or generally ask you what is the health of the municipal corporations when it comes to their finances, and it's an RBI analysis. So itself the government is finding a lot of flaws in the way the urban municipal corporations are working as of right now. So before I go into the nitty-gritty again, I will just try to give you the overview. First point is they are not generating as much revenue internationally other municipal corporations are when it comes to tax revenue. They're spending it on the wrong places. They're too dependent on state and central grants itself, and when it comes to how that tax is generated itself, they're too reliant on property tax. So this means that when it comes to their finances, generally municipal corporations in India are on a very, very shaky foundation. So this is a very, very dangerous precedence and very, very dangerous concept which is prevailing within the municipal corporations. So do you understand the basic point here? If you understand the basic point, then we'll do the analysis further. Come on. Yes, no? Live chat? Yes? Okay. So let's try to analyze it even further. Now you understand the basic point. The combined budget of all municipal corporations in India is much smaller than the central and state governments, and the RBI analysis called the Report on Municipal Finances has brought out this problem as of right now and how it is trying to shed light on what is the case. So chart number 1, which is given in the article itself, talks about the breakup of revenue. Tax earned by the municipal corporation as of right now is inadequate to meet their expenditure. So they are reliant on state and on central grants. But what is even more problematic is that the taxes, for example, water tax, toll tax, property tax, this is only 31 to 34% of total revenue. So in this whole thing, there is only 31 to 34% tax revenue. Everything else is either grant, non-tax or others, which is not good. This should be at least 50 to 60%, which is considered healthy. So the first problem is that they are not generating as much revenue through taxes as other organizations across the world are. Now, when you compare this to the percentage of state GDP, what we see is another alarming aspect, that own tax revenue of municipal corporations as a share of state GDP, where we have actuals is 2017-2018, 1% of Delhi, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh budget, or what we call as their state GDP, and 0.1% in Karnataka, HP, Assam and Sikkim. So when you keep the municipal corporation tax revenue vis-a-vis the state GDP, what we see is that it is 0.1% to maximum in Chhattisgarh, Chandigarh, Maharashtra, Gujarat and Delhi 1 to 2%. So what let's try to decode this further. The point of the matter is that if the tax revenue of municipal corporations are seen vis-a-vis the state GDP, 0.1% to 1 to 2%, which is extremely alarming. It should be at least 5 to 6%, which is there in most of the other countries. So when it comes to tax revenue, in Brazil and South Africa, 7 and 6%. In India, the municipal corporation tax revenue vis-a-vis our whole GDP is 0.61% and has increased to 0.72%. And this is in Brazil 7 to 6%. This is not actually a good indicator that if you keep the tax revenue of the municipal corporation vis-a-vis our GDP itself, India's GDP, it is only 0.62% or 0.72%. This data is immaterial for you. Remember, this data is immaterial for you. What you need to understand is the fact that how small a part tax revenue of municipal corporations are playing at this point of time. The role which it is playing is extremely minuscule. And it further shows that within that 31 to 34% tax revenue, 40% is actually property tax. So another issue is that they're too reliant on property taxes, with 40% of all corporations getting their tax revenue from what we call as property tax. And with urbanization, they have more or less been able to increase it or kept it stagnant. But the point of the matter is this is not healthy. This is not healthy. And the fact of the matter is, if today there is a major drop in property prices or property market itself, that will have a major impact on municipal corporations. And they will become even more reliant on state and central grants. And I'll tell you the problem with that. Now, if you look at their expenditure, so the revenue side is that 31 to 34% they're getting and 40% is property tax. But if we talk about their expenditure itself, 70.6% is on revenue expenditure. So revenue and capital creates asset. It is a good thing over a long period of time. Revenue isn't. And revenue is recurring and it burns the cash. And if you look at it, if you add pension to it, it becomes 77 to 78%. And the capital expenditure, which is the resources they are creating in cities, is only 30% of the budget itself. So this is a major problem. This is a skewed concept that they are spending too much, but they're spending not on capital, but on revenue. So what are the implications? So when we have analyzed these graphs and data a little bit further, what we realize is that there's a major problem in the way they are generating and they're spending. But what is the implication? See, if municipal corporations are going to be too much reliant on state or central grants, then politicization of urban local bodies is going to become a problem, which is at the end of the day, what state government is there, what municipal corporation is being controlled by which party is going to now decide how much grant is going to go there. The point of the matter is, if there's a party A at the center, party B at the state, and party C which has won the municipal councillor elections, now what is going to happen is that this is going to create friction, and the ultimate loser is going to be you and me. Because at the end of the day, if there is a lot of lethargy, political friction, debate in spending the money or sending the money itself, it will be a problem for the people. And in cities like Delhi, Chennai, Kolkata, which are already urbanizing in a haphazard way, if the municipal corporations are not working, garbage disposal, sewage, today, one day if there's a problem, whole city will come to a standstill. So the basic point of the matter is we need to see that they are independently, autonomously capable of generating revenue in that regard. So please understand this very, very clearly, that urban local bodies being too much reliant on the state and center is not a good thing. So when we talk about the implications, this is what goes in the mains answer. And I have a mains question out of this area, don't worry. First is, they are too much dependent on center and state funds and they have limited earning capacity. First point. Second is, 70% is spent in revenue area, which is not a good thing. Thereafter, they don't borrow too much. They have limited borrowing capacity also. So therefore, they are always grasping for funds. They are always looking for funds. And the share of tax revenue is quite low vis-a-vis any other country. And this means that municipal corporations are totally dependent on state and center grants. They are compromised. They are not autonomous, and their finances are on very shaky grounds. So, before I move to the next topic, again I am recapping this area because a lot of you joined late, but the basic point of the matter is 4 things. They are only generating 31 to 34% as what we call as tax revenue. Second, 40% of that is property tax. Third is the fact that the share of this tax revenue vis-a-vis state GDP is minuscule to none, and overall they are spending in the wrong area. Is this clear, everyone? If it's clear, then we move to the second topic. Come on. Okay, perfect. Now, second topic. This is an interesting one, and here there are 2 very important aspects, and we'll revise the first topic again through the mains question, and I'll give you a summary again. The first point is, this article is very, very important because it talks about one judgment and it's related to ethics. So it's a very important topic for GS paper 4. So first point which you need to remember is December 2022, just last year, 1 month back, there was a very important judgment which came in Neeraj Datta versus the NCT of Delhi, the government of Delhi itself. Now again, I am giving you the overview here, and then we'll go into the basic pointers of the judgment itself. So as of right now, I am giving you a scenario. If you go for a case against an IAS officer, IPS officer for corruption, you have to have a lot of hard evidence. You need to have a complainant, you need to have evidence which is permissible within the Supreme Court or the law, Indian Penal Code itself, and not everything is allowed as evidence itself. Circumstantial evidence is not technically considered permissible, and you need to have, and the IAS and IPS officer, if there's a corruption charge, he or she is not guilty till there is proper proof against that officer. Now what this judgment has done is that it has reduced or lowered the bar for evidence vis-a-vis integrity and transparency and corruption cases of IAS officers or permanent executives. What does that mean? Again, I am trying to give you the basic here. The basic point here is that, for example, you had one complainant, one witness, and there was, for example, a very hazy CCTV footage of an IAS officer taking a bribe. So technically, haziness does not fully establish that he took a bribe, but there's a witness and there's a complainant. Now what happens in India, as we all know, because of our political culture, generally how it is, we can intimidate the witness, we can intimidate the complainant itself, and there are cases of absconding witness and absconding complainant, that they did put a complaint but now they are absconding, they cannot be seen because they've been intimidated, the officer has created too much pressure on that person. Now in that case, what is going to happen before December 2022, what would happen was that the case would not be permissible and the IAS or IPS officer would be left alone, that you are not guilty of the corruption charge. But now what the Supreme Court has done, they say that if there was initial complainant, circumstantial evidence in the form of CCTV footage, and even if the witness is absconding, still we will take the initial complaint, initial witness report along with the CCTV footage, it will be found enough to convict an IAS officer, IPS officer, a gazetted officer on the charges of corruption. Now this is a very dangerous slippery slope, we'll come to that, the implications itself, but it's equally important when it comes to corruption in India. So now what the Supreme Court has done is they have used a concept of propensity of probability. This is a precedence which has been created that if there's a probability of him, he or she, the officer, taking that via the given evidence, which may not have been permissible previously or in a criminal case, now we will allow it. Now we will allow it. So the Supreme Court, via this judgment, has now tried to hit the corruption regime in India, and generally the way it has become very standard to technically intimidate complainants, witnesses, even whistleblowers. So the basic point of the matter here, this article, is that this is a good thing, but we don't know how effective it is going to be. But a very important line which it says, and that is why I am doing this here, is that people talk about giving capital punishment, increasing the severity of the punishment. That's called deterrence. That you deter. I know that I will be convicted for example, 11 years for murdering somebody. So therefore it deters my behavior. I don't murder someone because it is very, very hard for me to be in jail for 11 months or 11 years or whatever be the case. The basic point of the matter is this is called deterrence. You deter via behavior. But a very important line which was written in this article was that if you increase the severity of punishment, the same way the evidence has to be foolproof. So the severity of punishment is not the answer to corruption, because if you increase the severity, you need to have even more foolproof evidence against that officer. So the Supreme Court, via this judgment, the Neeraj Datta, remember the word Neeraj Datta judgment, has now created a very dangerous, good, bad, that time will tell technically, but a precedence in which now circumstantial evidence, absconding complainant reports, and even absconding witness reports will be allowed as evidence against IAS officers, IPS officers or gazetted officers. This has an implication on you, therefore you need to understand the concept itself. So do you understand the basic point? What is the judgment? Then we'll go into the major pointers. Clear? Come on. Yes, clear. Perfect. So, in the judgment, December 2022, Neeraj Datta versus the government of NCT of Delhi, the Constitution bench of the Supreme Court came down heavily on corruption by lowering the bar for quantum of evidence to convict a person charged with corruption. So, what are the major pointers? The major point is, Supreme Court has debunked the myth of absolute proof of guilt alone can help convict an offender. So the word here is absolute proof. They say no. When it comes to corruption, we don't want absolute proof. We are happy with circumstantial proof also. So it has laid down that even if the prosecution witness turns hostile, which is that he said something and now he is absconding, a conviction would be in order if the circumstantial evidence marshaled by the prosecution and produced before the court points unmistakably towards the guilt of the accused. So if there is circumstantial proof that somebody was just making a video and somehow he caught something in that, that is called circumstantial proof. Their absconding means bhag jana, to go away, absconding. Now, Supreme Court has set the standard of preponderance of probability. If there is probability based on the circumstantial evidence that this person was guilty, we will declare him guilty. Therefore, the yardstick has now been reduced, which was previously unacceptable and still is unacceptable for a criminal trial. So in a criminal trial, circumstantial evidence doesn't work. Here, they have reduced the yardstick itself. Doesn't matter. If we have circumstantial proof, it is more than enough in that regard. The belief was that only conclusive proof with proof which would prove beyond 1 iota, not even 1%, that the person is guilty, then only the court would give a judgment. But now that is not the case itself. Now the non-availability of complainant, either he is dead or otherwise not traceable, should also be acceptable for the story of the prosecution. So what is the implication of this judgment? So if you understand, I gave you the basic point itself. The point here is very simple. It's very simple. If you had one witness, one complainant, circumstantial proof, this would not be enough till 2022 December to prosecute an IAS officer, IPS officer. However, with this Neeraj Datta judgment, it has now become acceptable for this person, these two persons, to abscond also, to become hostile also, and just the basic circumstantial evidence to convict a gazetted officer. Now, is it good? Is it bad? It's both good and bad. And this is my personal opinion. You can differ on it. The basic point of the matter is that it's good because corruption is a problem. There needs to be some form of fear, deterrence within the gazetted officers, generally the permanent executives in India. However, it's bad equally because of the fact that now you create precedents. There can be harassment of officers. Officers would not be ready to do what they did in good faith, knowing that now there is such a low yardstick itself. So at the same point of time, it creates fear, but it also creates fear to do the right thing, because people in India are very, very ingenious. They can work out anything to harass officers themselves. So it can also become a tool of harassing officers. So it's a double-edged sword. Let's see over a period of time which side cuts the most. But as of right now, though the article itself is very pessimistic, it says that nothing is going to change. As a UPSC aspirant, as a GS paper 4 candidate, as ethics, we believe that these things are good, and this should change the behavior of certain officers who have not been very honest, or they have issues related to their integrity. So I leave it to your personal judgment. Don't give either extremes if there's a question on this. But for me, it is a double-edged sword. That is the word which you can use in the examination. Clear? Can we move on to the third topic? Come on. Okay. Perfect. Yardstick means a benchmark. Now, this is related to science and technology. After this, I'll give you a basic summary of what we've done till this point, and then we'll move on. Science and technology, we all see things every day. UPSC has made it a point now to ask questions of science and technology vis-a-vis how you interact with everything today. So, for example, Internet of Things became a point. So the question came on Internet of Things. They talked about OLEDs. They talk using day-to-day devices as an example to ask a question. So we all have what is called DTH. You would have seen it, you call it a set-top box. But a rudimentary version of a DTH is called a DTR, which is a digital television receiver. This is a digital television hub. So this is a set-top box, and this is, you can see it as a small antenna itself. So what the ministry as of right now in the BIS, the Bureau of Indian Standards, has pointed out, according to international standards, they have said, and this was not mandatory before this, that a digital television receiver, meaning basic antenna also, along with a DTH, a digital television hub, which is the set-top box setup with the dish itself, should have satellite connectivity, which is that it should have a satellite receiver. The word is satellite tuners, which is that if you buy a TV today, and if it's not a smart TV, meaning it does not have Android, it does not have any of the OTT platforms, it's useless. You have to buy a set-top box from any of these providers, Tata Sky and all, then they will give you access to even the free channels. So you would know there are free channels and there are paid channels. But the ironical aspect is, if you put a dish on your TV itself, it won't work. Which is that if you put this type of an antenna on your TV, this antenna will not catch the free. For example, DD and AIR, it is not going to catch. So what the government of India is trying to point out is that even when a person has a very basic TV, the DTR, the digital television receiver, the antenna itself, now if it is sold in India, should have a satellite tuner, so that at least the free channels can be on the TV without paying for the subscription of other channels or the DTH service itself. This is why this is a new revolutionary moment when it comes to DTH technology, when it comes to television technology in India, because now every TV, when it is sold, it should be capable of using these satellite tuners. And second is that even if a basic antenna has been sold in India or a set-top box is sold in India, it should have a satellite tuner, because it should be able to catch at least DD, the free channels, without paying for the other ones. So it's a good move, and it's a new concept itself which has been introduced as per international standards. So the BIS has published a new country-specific standard for manufacturing of digital television receivers. Now this is why I'm showing you this picture, because DTH and DTR are different. DTH is very, very elaborate. It has a dish. The dish is technically connected with a hub, and that hub gives you access to TV. Now this digital television receiver should have built-in satellite tuners for universal serial bus, meaning it should have a Type-C charger you use, it should have a Type-C connector, plug and cable, and even for video surveillance systems, the antenna should be capable of catching satellite, what we call as free channels. So the new standard is going to come with the new, what we call as DTRs in the market, and they will need to have a built-in satellite receiver. This is to enable the reception of free-to-air TV and radio channels such as DD and AIR, and this is to make sure that the cost of purchasing set-top box is offsetted. So it's a very simple topic, very easy topic itself, but the basic point of the matter is that now DTRs and DTH, even if a set-top box you have not paid 1 rupee, the set-top box should now have an option of satellite tuning via which DD should come on your concept itself. So what is DTR, DTH? See, DTR technology is the baseline technology of a DTH. Digital television receiver, digital television hub. Hub is that box itself, set-top box. So difference is between an antenna and a set-top box. So the basic point here is, now you will see new specification antennas and DTHs in India. Clear, everybody? Can we move to the fourth topic? We'll discuss what we've done till this point, and then we'll move on to the fourth topic. Okay. So, till this point, we've done 3 basic topics. First, where we try to understand municipal finances, 30 to 34% coming from tax, 0.1 to 1% to 2% of state GDP, spending it in the wrong area, 70% revenue expenditure. Thereafter, we try to understand a judgment, Neeraj Datta judgment, which has now lowered the benchmark yardstick for evidence against corruption cases against the gazetted officers, specifically IAS and IPS officers. And this topic is talking about a new technology or a new standard the BIS has set to make sure that now everybody in India who has a television and basic antenna can at least see DD and other free channels without paying for any other thing. So with this, we'll move on to one scheme and one alarming development within the railways. These are the last 2 topics. The scheme was launched on 9 January, Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, the day on which Gandhi came back in 1915 itself. That is called Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. And now we have a new scheme between UK and India, and it may impact you also, which is Young Professional Scheme. So again, I'm going to give you the basic overview, and then we'll go into the nitty-gritty itself. What is circumstantial proof? Circumstantial proofs mean that you don't have concrete proof, but you have certain proofs which are not technically related to the case, but are circumstantially there. They were by chance there. Okay. Now, everybody is with me till this point. No issues. Can we talk about the Young Professional Scheme? Come on. Because a lot of you are talking within yourself for some reason. Okay. Now, what is Young Professional Scheme? Young Professional Scheme is an initiative between UK and India, United Kingdom, Britain and India, in which 3,000 youths, meaning between 18 to 30 years of age, 3,000 of them can go and it's either way, meaning 3,000 British to India and 3,000 Indians to Britain. So 3,000 Indians and 3,000 British citizens can come to India and go to Britain, and I'll give you the example of Indians going to Britain, which is 3,000 young Indians 18 to 30 age can go to Britain for 2 years on a visa and can work, study or visit without any problem. So they have now changed the visa rules a little bit, and this is to allow skilled workers or skilled professionals to go to Britain. Now, as of right now, if you have to go, for example, to work in Britain, so you need a work visa. But under this scheme, 3,000 individuals can first visit Britain for 2 years on one visa, and whilst they were visiting, they got some employment, so they can take that employment and also study in Britain for 2 years. So you don't need to have prior education proof or what we call as work permit or work proof to go to UK. The same is true for a British national. He came to India or she came to India. They were visiting India generally, and then they found some employment which they found lucrative for them, or they were interested. They can work and then they can go back after 2 years. But that visa will be allowing them to be in India for 2 years and use this opportunity. So it's technically allowing skilled professionals from both sides to work in India, study in Britain, or work and study and visit Britain and India more easily. So it's the way after Brexit and Rishi Sunak, this was actually promised by Rishi Sunak at the G20 summit in Indonesia. So as of right now, it's an interesting scheme. I will just say how it is used is a totally different concept itself, but how it will technically pan out over a period of time is something totally different. So the basic point of view for you is that you need to remember the basic details. 3,000, 18 to 30, you can also avail this. You can visit for 2 years. Now this is a very big thing. You can get a tourist visa for 2 years. You can just roam around if you have the money with this exchange rate. If you have the money to roam around in UK for 2 years, sure. And if you're visiting, you get some employment. You can study there also, and you can work there also on the same visa. And that is true for a British national for India also. So it's either way. So the basic point is it's a young professional scheme. So let's see how this pans out over a period of time. Basic point is clear. Then I'll talk about the nitty-gritties of the scheme, and then we can move on. It's not brain drain, because after 2 years they're going to push you back into India. So don't worry about that. Who pays the money? You pay the money. The government is obviously not going to pay the money for you. Okay, right. So the government of India and UK marked the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas on 9th January by a new scheme, young professional scheme, which will permit 3,000 of their degree holding citizens. Remember, only degree holding citizens aged between 18 to 30 to live and 18 to 30 rather, to live and work in each other's country for a period of 2 years. So what are the main features of this scheme? Young Indians and Britons can travel to each other's country either for work, study, visit for 2 years. The scheme allows 3,000 individuals per year. The candidates don't need to have work or study proof before leaving for Britain. They can do it later once they reach there. Therefore, the successful candidates could look for a job, educational, cultural opportunity even when they arrive into the host country. It's not that you need to have it before you leave, or they could just visit also. So you now have a new type of visa which allows for, because as of right now, a work visa is totally different, a tourist visa is totally different, and a student visa is totally different. This is technically bringing all these three together. That universal visa can allow you for study, work, and visit all three together. And the government is as of right now seeking to have a better relationship and allowing for professionals to move easily between these two countries. Britain is in a crisis right now, and any form of Indian professionals going there would only add to their economy. So that is why they are trying to push for this. So before we move on to the last topic, again I'm repeating what we've done in this topic. Very simply, 3,000 individuals every year, 18 to 30 years of age, can now get a visa via this scheme in which they can work, study or visit with the same visa itself, and it will allow them to stay there for 2 years. They don't have to give proof of work or study before they leave from India or before they leave from Britain. They can do it later, which is totally new, which is actually totally new concept. So this is the basic scheme. Remember the name of the scheme, Young Professional Scheme, Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, context Gandhi, 9 January 1915 he comes back. That is the reason why we have given that date, Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, and an important scheme of professional transfer between UK and India. Right? Can we move on to the last topic? Is it applicable on those who are already studying? No, you need to get a new type of visa. What is 111? 111 means one witness, one complainant and one circumstantial evidence. That is the reason why I wrote 111. Okay. This can be influenced by nepotism. Sure, anything can happen, but the basic point of that, there will be proper screening. They will not allow a random Indian to go. The British are not that liberal. The basic point of the matter is it will be proper screening. That person should have a proper degree. It says degree holding Indians. They would know that this person has the potential to actually get employment in UK. For example, you have a qualification with which you can never get anything in UK. So they will not give you. It will be proper screening. 3,000 people will be the cream of the cream, and they would know that these people can add to the British economy or they can add to the Indian economy. So it's not a very innocent scheme. That is why I'm telling you, over a period of time, what is going to happen is a totally different concept. These schemes look good on paper. Let's see who actually avails it. Is it just for the professionals, existing professionals, to move around easily, or for allowing the people who are already working to come to India for 2 years easily and go back to UK? So it's about how we work out in that sense. Okay. With this, the last topic related to Indian Railways and jobs. Jobs is something which is very sensitive issue in India. We have, as of right now, a lot of our demographic dividend, which is we are a very young country. So the demographic dividend is getting wasted because we don't have the number of jobs to give to the same level of youth and the people who are seeking the jobs. And in that context, you get a report saying that 3.12 lakh Indian railway jobs are going vacant as of right now. So this is a little bit concerning, and for you it is important. Because at the end of the day, you are the ones who are seeking these jobs also. And also, the more alarming aspect of the story is that these jobs are mostly, 50% of them are in the safety sector. So I'll tell you what it is. The concept here is that there are gazetted and non-gazetted jobs. So non-gazetted jobs, the RRB, Railway Recruitment Board jobs, you have different jobs. For example, train drivers, the shunters, the inspectors, the signalmen. Now the basic point is, as of right now, it has been revealed in the Rajya Sabha that 3.12 lakh jobs are vacant. 50% of them are actually in the safety zone of railways. And that is the first aspect what the article is pointing out. The second aspect is there is a lot of protests which are also going on within the railway workers unions, wherein they are working very long shifts. The railway has to now outsource a lot of things because there is not the exact manpower needed. And over and above that, Indian Railways is under pressure because of manpower shortage. Now this is called a paradox. The paradox is there's youth in India who are waiting, who are working to get these jobs, and they will do anything to get these jobs. And the railway at this point of time is totally desperate for people to join the railways, but that mismatch is not matching each other. So we have people who are seeking jobs, and we have an organization which wants people, but somehow 3.12 lakh jobs are going vacant and have not been advertised or have not been technically taken on board. And this is the problem. And this is why we need to make sure that our demographic dividend is not getting wasted over these very small basic administrative issues. The Railway Minister has said that it is a continuous process, it will get integrated over a period of time, and we have already advertised 40,000 of these jobs, but still that means that there is close to 2 lakh jobs left. So this topic talks about employment, it's a GS paper 3 related topic, and it also talks about the pressure on the Indian Railways as of right now. So Indian Railways is reeling under the crushing staff shortage with 3.12 lakh non-guestive posts lying vacant in 18 zones as of December 1st, 2022. Over and above that, the highest vacancies in the northern zone. Northern zone is the most dangerous also because of the fog which is prevailing as of right now in India. And you realize one thing, with fog prevailing, we don't have safety inspectors, we don't have people checking the tracks, and these are the jobs which are also vacant also. So highest in northern zone, then western, eastern and central zone. Non-guested jobs range from different types of jobs, for example engineers, technicians, clerks, station masters, ticket collectors and more. In the central railways, 28,650 vacant positions are there. Almost 50% of them are actually operation and maintenance staff, inspectors of various kinds, drivers, train examiners, shunters. Basically 50% of these jobs are in safety zone of railways, and Indian Railways, in the peak of winters, you need safety officers, and this is the non-guested official positions are totally vacant at this point of time. So people who are already there are working overtime, and the most important job, which is technically safety of railways, because one train derailment or any form of accident can impact close to thousands of people. So how is it that we are allowing this to happen when it comes to Indian Railways, a very important zone itself? So there's a staff shortage, long shift, inefficiency in the people who are already there, and the ministry is saying it's a continuous process of recruitment. So now please understand this very, very clearly, that this is called what we call as a demographic dividend paradox, that there is an organization which seeks youth and there are youth who are seeking jobs, but somehow there's a mismatch, they're not meeting together. So before we move to the mains question, what have we done today? Let's revise, because we have to use this time as fruitful as possible. Therefore let's revise so that you don't have to watch the video again. First topic, we understood the concept of municipal corporation, what we call as finances. And in municipal corporation finances, what is more important is that only 31 to 34% as per the RBI is tax revenue, which is 40% out of this 31 to 34% is only property tax. When it comes to state GDPs, only 0.1% to 2% of the state GDP, very minuscule amount, and they're spending close to 77% on what we call as revenue expenditure, which is not a good precedence. Thereafter, we understood the Neeraj Datta case, in which the yardstick of corruption proceedings has gone down. One of you, Ankit Sharma, you've been pointing out, I don't know, 1 is just an example. You could have 2, 2, 2, you could have 5, 5, 5, 6, 6, it doesn't matter. Basic point is there is a need for a witness, a complaint or a complainant, and evidence. That is 1, 1, 1. So if you have one complainant, one witness and one circumstantial evidence, previously if any of these three would not work out properly, the case would be dismissed, but now circumstantial evidence is enough even with absconding witness and complainant. Therefore the yardstick has been brought down, the concept of probability has been introduced in probity, which is that integrity and transparency in governance now is based on even circumstantial evidence. It's a double-edged sword. We'll see what is going to happen in the longer run. Then we tried to understand the concept of DTRs and DTH, this new yardstick by the BIS, that they need to have satellite tuners so that they can catch what we call as free-to-air services and free-to-air channels, so that you don't need to pay a premium for even free channels. And thereafter, we understood first the railway issue and also something related to the fact that how things are not working in the right way when it comes to the demographic dividend in India, and when it comes to the railways, there is a major backlog which has been created, which doesn't make any sense. And the last topic was, or the second last topic was, the scheme, young professional scheme, which is also a new initiative between UK and India for the movement of professionals between the two countries. Clear, everybody? Can we look at the mains questions? Okay. First question. The state of municipal finances in India indicate towards systemic issues in fund raising and spending. Comment. So, this is a very interesting question because it asks the fact that when you look at the finances of the municipal corporations, there is a systemic issue when it comes to how they raise money and spend money. So basically you have to use the basic data given in that in order to argue that they are raising it out of only property tax and they're spending it in the revenue sector. Second, the Neeraj Datta case was with the government of Delhi has created new precedents with regards to probity, which is integrity in governance and administration. Elaborate. Again, this talks about how this is a new precedence, a new type of understanding which the Constitution bench has put through, which is that even when it comes to technically corruption cases, probability of guilt is enough for convicting that person. So with this, I would like to end the session. If you liked the session, if you found it useful, do like, share and subscribe to our channel. And as I said, I hope that you're liking this new format in which we are going live. This is more interactive. We get to know what you're thinking. And I hope that I'm being able to take your questions also. The workshop on 11th is very, very important. The link is given in the description. Do register for it. And I will see you again very soon with another 5 topics out of the Hindu newspaper. But as of right now, I hope that you found this session very, very useful. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.